What if I told you that US banks are now closing down customer accounts without warning or hesitation? You think I'd be joking, but in this case, I'm not. This is now starting to happen in America, leaving many Americans panicking over the state of their accounts and their finances because they're now left wondering, how am I going to pay my car? How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to afford groceries? And with more and more people realizing that the banks they're putting their money into is not there to serve their interests, one of the bigger concerns, where are they going to put their money if they can't trust the banks? What's happening in the US banking system right now is insane, and we're going to break down exactly what's going on and why this is occurring with so many customers all over America. So we'll take a look at all of this, but before we do, it takes just 2 seconds. If you're new around here and you enjoy these kind of updates, please do consider hitting the like and subscribe button down below. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, to begin, just for context, when I say the US banks are shutting down customer accounts, I'm not referring to stopping credit cards from being valid. I'm not referring to stopping loans from being issued to customers. No, what the US banks are actually doing is closing down actual customer bank accounts. And it's no wonder that people are panicking. All of a sudden, you have access to your savings, but then just as quickly, the banks decide to shut you out and you no longer have access to your savings. All the money you worked so hard to obtain, you now cannot get access to at your local bank. What is going on? Have a look at this. JP Morgan Chase CEO admits that US banks, quote, push people out of the system after Trump hammers Chase, Bank of America, over abrupt account terminations. Now, this article was published this month, but if we go back to an article published by the same organization in September of 2024, have a look at this headline. JP Morgan Chase accused of refusing to reimburse customers, failing to terminate scammers' accounts amid a federal probe. So, this issue is not new. So, why is this happening? Going off on a little bit of a tangent, how many times on this channel have we spoken about credit card debts and the fact that customers are defaulting on the debts? That means they become a risk to the banks. The same concept applies here. If the banks are viewing you, the customer, as a risk, their quickest and most efficient way of dealing with that risk and mitigating it is to get rid of you. Think about it. If you end up costing the bank money instead of making the bank money, then you're not an asset, you're a liability to the company. And with the banks getting rid of you, the consequences for you, the customer, are severe. No loans, no credit cards, no mortgages, no savings accounts, no checking accounts, no nothing. So, what is going on? Let's have a read of this and try and see if we can understand what the banks are thinking when they're making these decisions. So, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon is addressing controversy over how and why some American citizens and businesses are abruptly finding themselves kicked out of the banking system. After meeting with Republican lawmakers in Washington, D.C. on the subject of debanking, Dimon told reporters that Chase never drops customers over their religious or political affiliations. Okay, that's something. I guess that's a comfort to people who have been kicked out of the system altogether. Sarcasm, by the way. Instead, Dimon said unclear federal guidelines, especially around anti-money laundering rules, force banks to deny services out of compliance fears. And when squarely asked if regulators are to blame for debanking, Dimon responded, pretty much, yeah. So he's trying to blame the governments. What did he say? There are a lot of things that should be fixed regarding anti-money laundering laws. And it does cause a lot of people to be pushed out of the system because banks were afraid of being sued, fined. Because if, after the fact, something goes wrong, coulda, woulda, shoulda, you could pay $1 billion. So you heard it there. It's all about mitigating and lowering risk. But what does that mean for you, the customer? Because it got me thinking, how many other people out there across America who have been shafted by the banks? Take a look at this example from Reddit. Hello everyone. I received a letter from Wells Fargo that my home mortgage is being sold to Freedom. I've been with Wells Fargo for 16 years. I only have $90,000 worth of mortgage payments remaining. I've never been late or behind. I have a 30-year fixed mortgage. I paid off a finance loan for an HVAC unit from them. Never late autodraft. Paid off quick. Wells Fargo is a reputable bank, so I'm not sure about this Freedom Mortgage place. Does anyone know why the mortgage companies are selling loans? What has happened here? Well, the bank that issued this person the loan has now sold that loan to another institution. And why? Who knows? But one main reason could be because they are considered high risk. Now, from that description, you wouldn't think that individual is considered high risk, but banks have different strategies to how they would measure this. And if this individual is considered to be high risk, as we mentioned at the start of the video, one simple way of dealing with it is get them off the books, get them away from your organization. So, transfer them or sell them to another bank. And you heard it there in that example. The bank or the institution that the loan was being sold to, this place called Freedom, it didn't seem like a reputable or safe or as well known, respected or revered as Wells Fargo. So, that leaves the customer potentially in a much less secure place. Now, I'm not here to talk smack against anyone, so I'll just let Reddit do it for me. Reddit responded to the person who made this query. Good news. Your mortgage being sold is no big deal. It happens all the time. That's true. Bad news, as mentioned before, Freedom Mortgage are absolute slimy fools that will do everything in their power to screw you over. Read every piece of correspondence they send you to make sure that you don't have to opt in or out of something that you may have already done in the past or taken for granted previously. Again, not my view, I'm just seeing what's been posted on Reddit, that's all. But let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it. Why am I bringing this to your attention? Well, quite simply, because the US right now faces a big problem. And, as mentioned at the start of this video, this is why people are panicking. I mean, how would someone write a check for a deposit if they don't have a bank account? How can they tap into their savings to pay for their groceries if they don't have a bank account? How can they offer a down payment on a loan if they don't have a bank account? Where can they save or store their money if they don't have a bank account? Now, if we assume that all the major banks in the US banking system are doing the same thing by closing down your accounts and getting rid of you, whether you're a high-risk account holder or a low-risk account holder, they just want to get you off their books so they can generate more money and have more liquidity. In which case, there are a couple of things you can do to put the odds and the power back in your favor. Now, before we get into anything, I should just say as a quick disclaimer, I am not a licensed financial advisor, I'm not a licensed investment advisor, I am simply voicing my opinion on a video I'm creating for entertainment purposes only. Okay, let's get into it. You need to become your own bank. If you can't trust the institutions by storing your money there, or by lending them your business, by taking loans out, you essentially need to protect the money that you have by becoming your own bank. How do you do this? Well, the simplest and best answer I can give is buy assets. People always need assets. The rich in our society, because of their vast reserves of wealth, they purchase assets, whether it's commodities, real estate, farmland, agriculture, office space, buildings, whatever it may be. Assets are the way to protect and invest your wealth and your money. Think about the Reddit example again. The bank, the mortgage that the person had with Wells Fargo. When Wells Fargo sold it off to another institution, Wells Fargo made money because they transferred it, they sold it. So they made transactional money, they made money on top of the actual mortgage they were selling. That then became an asset for them. The same concept applies here. You need the assets because the assets can retain or increase in value. And far be it for me to advise anyone on what they should and shouldn't buy simply because I don't know what your budget looks like. But one I'm particularly bullish on is gold. I think gold has a long way to go. It's been hitting record high after record high recently, so who knows? But either way, we're only talking this way because the banks have deemed the American people untrustworthy. They've deemed the American people as a massive risk. And Donald Trump is aware of this, which is why he's now probing and investigating what's going on in the US banking system. Either way, it's a very interesting time. But just as your US bank may view you as untrustworthy, my second piece of advice would be for you to view your own bank also as untrustworthy. Do not, please, have all your savings in one institution. Diversification is the key. You need to have a little bit stored everywhere. If you have all your eggs in just one basket, and that one basket then suddenly disappears from sight, then you lose everything. Have a little bit in Wells Fargo, have a little bit in Bank of America, have a little bit in Merrill Lynch, wherever it needs to be. Just keep your money in different places so at least you have emergency funds all over the place if just one of those institutions fails or decides to close your accounts. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. Have you been impacted by this? Do you suspect you may be impacted by this in the future? Do you agree that assets are the way forward? Please let me know your thoughts down below. All opinions are welcome. I'll be returning soon in the coming weeks, but until then, see you all later and take care.